Hey, welcome back to the CommonGround North Dakota Podcast. I'm Heather.
And I'm Jen.
I've been a chef for 10 years.
And I'm a registered dietitian. We've all heard the saying, farm to table. But what if the conversation was table to farm?
Join Jen and I as we sit down with ag experts to dig in and find out more about North Dakota agriculture. All right, welcome back to another episode of CommonGround North Dakota. I'm Heather.
I'm Jen. And hey, we're here to talk about sunflowers today.
I'm so excited. Do you know about sunflowers?
Well, so this summer, right, my niece came up with some friends from Nebraska, and they wanted to go out and take pictures in sunflower fields. And then my son did it too with his girlfriend.
So
like it was a thing because they're all over, you know, in the late summer.
Yes.
And they didn't have a lot in Nebraska, apparently.
So they found some here.
Thing. Yeah. They
come
found
to North Dakota for your sunflower
pictures. Yep. And they just did it right on their iPhones. And that got me thinking about, like, man, there's a lot to learn about sunflowers.
There's so much. See, when I lived in Carrington, there was a sunflower field across the street from where we lived. And so we would go play in there and like take the sunflower seeds in between making friendship bracelets, you know?
Nice. Yep.
And I always wondered, well, what happens? Because they weren't salty, right? They weren't ready to eat. So I want to know all about that process from field to baseball game.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we have an expert.
We do. Welcome.
Hi, Allison.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Allison, tell us what your job is in the sunflower industry and like what do you do on a daily basis with sunflowers?
So I work for a company called New Seed. We are a sunflower breeding company. And so we breed new hybrids for growers. And we also produce the seed that the growers plant.
Okay.
So in my role, product development / agronomy. So I'm taking a look at what the new hybrids are that are coming down the pipeline.
Okay.
So what are the new products that growers are going to be having available to them in the next couple of years? Mm-hmm. Is that the right product to bring forward? And so I'm kind of that middleman in between our sales team and our R&D team.
Okay. And how many different types of sunflowers are there?
So there's more than you would think. So you have your confections. So that's what you'd find at a baseball game.
Okay.
So those are a little bigger. They have stripes on them.
Yeah.
You know, you crack the shell and you eat the meat out of it. Uh-huh. And then you have con oils, which is just a cross between your oil seed and confections.
Okay.
And what you get is a little smaller seed.
Okay.
And they hull it. And that's sold into bakeries. Or if you've ever been to a salad bar and you see like a dish
of
the sunflower seeds, that all comes from con oils.
Okay.
Okay.
And then there's the bird food market.
Oh, forgot about that.
Yeah. Can't
That's
forget
a big
about the
market.
bird food market. You know, you go into Walmart or Runnings, Tractor Supply, and you can buy a bird food mix or just a straight bag of sunflower seeds.
Yep.
And so there's certain processors that do that, and they have their specs that they have to meet for quality.
Okay.
And then you have the oil crush market.
Oh.
And so
sun butter?
Sun butter would be the con oil market.
Con oil.
Because they want to hull it and then just use that meat to make that sun butter.
Okay. Sure. Okay, what's the oil crush?
You can buy bottled oil or bakeries. You know, there's also been dog food ingredients, tires. I've also been told before. But, and then within that oil crush, there's different oleic specs. So you have your high oleic oil, and then you have your New Sun, which is a branded term or trademark term for a middle oleic profile. And so there's all these different categories that a sunflower grower can sell into, and some will cross sell into others, and others are very specific.
Wow. And we're growing all those in North Dakota.
All of them in North Dakota.
Oh, wow. Oh. So like, yeah.
And do they all look like the big, pretty sunflower we envision?
They do. Okay. So if you were just driving by, you would have no idea what one is versus another. For those of us maybe that have more of a trained eye, usually if I'm driving by, I can look and say, oh, I bet that's a confection.
Okay.
Because usually they're planted at a lower population, and so they have a bigger head because you're really going for seed size,
Right?
Versus your oils, they're going to be a little bit tighter together.
Okay.
But you know your stuff. I mean, you've been in this business for a long time, right?
Yeah, I've been with New Seed for 9 years, and then worked with sunflowers prior to that, and also got my master's in sunflower breeding.
So what was it about sunflowers that drew you in?
So I worked in retail as a sales agronomist for 5 years in a small town in South Dakota.
Okay.
And what I found was that so my growers would grow corn, soybeans, wheat, and sunflowers. But not everyone grew sunflowers. Sunflowers was kind of the niche crop.
Okay.
And what I realized is that if I kind of went the extra step with my customers and said, hey, if I scouted your sunflowers for you during bloom time for insects, if I provided that free service, would you buy your sunflowers from me? It wound up working to be a very good process. So I really enjoyed that scouting process during that time of year. There wasn't much else going on, and it gave me an extra sales opportunity.
That's great.
And so I really kind of started to develop my passion for sunflowers within those growers.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then after a couple of years, I noticed that there was some issues.
Okay.
There can be quite a few diseases that can impact sunflowers.
Okay.
So sunflowers is one of the few crops that's actually native to North America.
Oh.
And because of that, we get a lot of bugs and insects, and which also makes it good for breeding here because we can make sure that it can tolerate this environment.
Right.
But I was noticing that there was a lot of issues.
Okay.
And so then that's kind of what led me down my graduate school path is I wanted to help be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not part of the problem.
So interesting.
Creating like the different varieties, like that are more insect resistant or plant or weed resistant or disease resistant. Is that kind of why we would want different varieties?
Well, the big overarching thing is you want different varieties because there's all these different market classes.
Okay. Okay.
But within that, so let's just take oilseed because that's the biggest market class.
Okay.
So within oilseed, you're always breeding for just the same as any other crop. You want good yields.
Yep.
You want the plant to look good in the field and have good quality for the processor. And then once those bases are covered, then you can dive into, is there any insect resistance out there that's needed? Is there disease resistance out there? And NDSU is the biggest sunflower breeding and pathology place in the country.
Oh, wow.
For sunflowers.
Nice to have.
Cool.
It is. There's some great people.
You work pretty closely with them?
We do. Dr. Sam Markell, he's the sunflower pathologist at NDSU with Extension.
Oh, okay.
Always
pathologist.
A pathologist.
Every time he sees my name on his email, he's probably like, "Oh, I got to answer her question now."
But why not use that resource? That's amazing.
Well,
Yeah,
exactly.
to have that career.
And
that'd be cool.
And it's a team effort, right? Because we need we need everybody having their own part in order to make sunflowers a success for growers in this area.
Yep.
Right. And they understand our climate, our soil. That's great.
Yes.
So talk about like the journey of a sunflower. Because, we think about them when they're like bright and yellow and like pictures in the field, but like.
Right. Is the seed a sunflower seed? Or
It is.
It is.
And like how long, because I feel like the harvest is later in the year because they have to dry down.
Right.
So,
They hang out for a while, don't they?
I know, right? So what does that look like the growing season? And then where does it go from there?
Yeah. So typically a grower would plant early May.
Okay.
The month of May.
Okay.
So it really varies based on your area.
Okay.
What I've noticed is northern North Dakota, northern Minnesota, they're really aiming at that early May to mid-May.
Okay.
As you go further south, it seems that they plant a little later. I think part of it is the other crops that they plant, and part of it is just that's what they've always done.
Okay.
I'm always a big promoter to customers that they should plant early. But sometimes it doesn't always work out for their operation.
Okay.
They plant the sunflower seed.
They plant the sunflower seed.
And, here's a little fun fact. So with our con oils, since we use both a confection and an oil seed parents, whatever the mom looks like is what the planting seed is going to look like, because it's a maternal trait.
Oh, see, we're really getting into the
genetics.
Breeding. Here's the breeding aspect.
So it's all about the mom.
It should be, as it should be, right?
Yeah, but otherwise, most of them, you have a black oil seed for planting, and that's what it's going to look like.
Wow.
So we do all hybrids. When you get into some other areas in the world, in Europe, Russia, Ukraine, they're still using some open pollinated.
And what does that mean?
So what that means is it's a self-pollinating crop. So you're not using two parents. You're just using one, kind of like they would with soybeans.
Oh, okay.
So you're just you're using inbreeding to create a new line.
Okay.
And so technically, a farmer could grow his crop and keep growing the same one. And it'll just look the same because it's an open pollinated inbred line.
Okay.
Versus when you have a hybrid, like we use with corn and sunflowers here in the U.S. and in most places in the world, you're using two parents.
Okay.
And so what would happen is if you're a grower and you planted the seed that you grew, number one, that's not legal. Oh. But number two, your sunflowers would also look, they would look a mess because you would now have the offspring of those two parents.
Sure.
And so it wouldn't be an inbred line.
Okay.
It would be the next generation, if that makes sense. So you would have a combination of some of the mom, some of the dad, some in between.
Okay.
If we had a whiteboard, I could do some.
Well, and this is why you need a pathologist, right? Like, this is why it's really complicated.
It is. And then sunflowers gets even more complicated because so sunflowers is a perfect plant in the sense that the male and female is on the same part. So with corn, you have your silks on the cob, and then you have your tassel. And all you would have to do is just break off the tassel. And you remove the male.
Sure.
Okay. Well, with sunflowers, it's both on the face of the sunflower plant.
Okay.
So what our breeders actually do when they want to make a new cross is they go out every morning to a sunflower head and with a pair of tweezers.
No.
And they have to pull out the pollen tubes every morning. So because every morning a sunflower will put on a new ring. And so our breeders are out there
with tweezers
pulling out the new ring, and then they rebag it because otherwise bees will bring foreign pollen. They go in later in the day and bring pollen collected from another plant, and then we'll take a brush and brush that pollen on. And then the next morning, you got to do it all over again.
Oh my gosh. They sound like sunflower estheticians.
Yes, that's a process.
With the tweezers, right? And then you got to bag them.
At least you got that natural light to help. Oh my gosh. Wow.
But rain or shine. If there was 2 inches of rain that night.
That's a commitment.
You're out there with your tweezers.
Yeah, you got to put on your boots. And
I had no idea.
Wild.
Our breeders work very hard.
Okay, so I'm thinking about the sunflower as I'm driving by again. Do they really follow the sun?
So back to the whole life cycle of once it's planted. So it follows the sun up until bloom time, and then it always face east.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's important to know if you're ever going to take pictures and you want like a sunrise or a sunset.
Okay. They always face east. Interesting.
And that is good to know. And so you were saying you had some friends that were in town that wanted to take pictures. And there's something on the North Dakota Tourism website about where to find the best location.
Yeah, so the National Sunflower Association partnered with North Dakota Tourism. And I'm not sure, I think it's housed on the North Dakota Tourism site, but it actually shows a map of where you can find some sunflower fields.
That's so cool.
I love that because you always do want to jump out when you see it.
I know. You're like, oh, that's
But
so
unless
beautiful.
you have people from out of state, you never really do stop.
Right.
But if you have someone from out of state, they're like, stop the car. We are taking a picture in that field.
And I think we just don't know that we have the abundance of,
We're lucky.
of crops. And is North Dakota a top producer of sunflowers? Is that right?
They are. Okay. So North Dakota, South Dakota, northwestern Minnesota has over 80% of all the U.S. acres.
Wow.
So I know most people think Kansas and, it's the sunflower state.
But it's not.
It's North Dakota.
That's another one for North Dakota.
I know. So so say the sunflowers are dried down, right? They have to dry down in order to harvest them. Do they harvest them with like a combine? And do they have to have special equipment to harvest them? And then once they are harvested, do they just go to the elevator? Or where do they go?
Yeah, so they either go to an elevator or to a specific processor. So a lot of growers with some will grow open market, but a lot grow based on contract.
Okay.
So within North Dakota, and I think this is one of the biggest reasons why sunflowers stay in this region, it's because there's processor options. If there's no contract, then what would motivate somebody to grow?
Sure. So we have processors in the state that they can bring to.
Of all of the things, like oils, confections, you said?
Yep, all of them. So I'll just give some examples here. On the crush side, we have ADM in Enderlin.
Okay.
Cargill in West Fargo.
Okay.
On the con oil end of things, you have Sunrich. There's Red River Commodities. There's another one, Advanced Sunflower in South Dakota. There's Schooler is another one.
Okay.
And so these are all customers that growers can contract their flowers with.
Okay.
And then confection, you've probably seen the brand name Giants.
Yep.
So that's one of the big contracts?
That's, they contract confections. And then put them into their bags. And then you would find them in the gas stations. Spitz is another one.
Okay.
That maybe you would see.
So let's talk about the edible sunflower seeds. I want to know more about the dill pickle process.
Right. Those seem to be a favorite, right?
So Giant, where's that? That's in North Dakota.
Giants is in Wahpeton, North Dakota.
Okay. And we see that everywhere.
We do. They were on the nightstand as I was leaving, and I'm like picking out my outfit. I'm like, we're talking about sunflowers today.
So most people, depending upon what you're interested in. So when I go into a gas station, I'm always like, I wonder what brands of sunflower seeds they're selling. And I'm like, they got a new flavor. Or, these ones don't look good. Or, these ones this is a new one.
So many different flavors now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different flavors. And then for me, since I work in the industry, I'm looking at what seed they're using.
And
the size, the shape. I mean, it's a whole nother focus. It's a lot different than breeding just your basic oilseed sunflowers, because you have the processor in mind. So the processor has a customer that wants a very specific look.
Yeah.
So they have a specific length and width. We call it the shoulders of the sunflower. So that would be the bigger part. And then, does it crack open good? Does it taste good?
Yeah.
All very important.
Yeah. Yes. And then not only that, but it has to perform well for a grower.
Yeah. Right. In the processing of the actual sunflower. So let's take sun butter. Let's go back to sun butter, because really the customer was maybe some schools that couldn't have nut butters. I mean, that's really super popular now. And that's a North Dakota product.
It is, and it is good. So if any of your listeners haven't tried sun butter,
like it.
Have you tried the chocolate?
What now?
Oh, there's flavors of sun butter too.
It's mixed in there?
There is. I should have brought you some.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah. So it would be most similar to Nutella.
Okay. Liking this.
But it has a lot less sugar.
Great.
So it's not quite as sugary. So as long as you kind of know that in your brain, that it's not meant to taste just like Nutella.
I'll have to look for that.
Yeah. The varieties. And it's nice to have like a spread that they can have without having to worry about allergens.
Yes.
Because that's been a huge thing. Like in my area of work, I know we're always concerned about nut allergies, as that's one of the more common ones. And to then have a product that can be safely added to school menus,
right.
I think that's a huge deal. So that's a very important market, I would guess, for you, and listening to consumers, it sounds like, and listening to their customers, right? So it's consumer driven.
most definitely consumer driven. Another part of I think what's driving consumers to like sunflowers is they're considered a non-GMO crop.
Okay.
And so just in some customers' minds, that's what they want.
Yeah.
And so that gives sunflowers also another market that they can go into.
Yeah.
But back to the sun butter.
Yeah.
I brought some samples with me of sun butter down to the Hefty Field Day. It's a big field day down in South Dakota.
Oh, cool.
And we had some leftover boxes from an event that we had given some out. And I thought, oh, who's going to walk around with these jars? It's like 98 degrees on this day. And they went really fast.
I bet.
Because a lot of people had never heard of it.
What?
And it, even though we're in the business to sell seed, anything that we can also do to help to promote sunflowers.
Absolutely.
I mean, helps drive more demand, helps our growers. It just, we're such a small industry that we all have to work together.
Right. You want to promote it everywhere.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, Alison, I've been distracted ever since you mentioned the illegal part.
Right.
I'm visualizing like detectives and police officers in the field. Can we go back to that? The illegal seed?
Yeah, and how would you know?
Yeah.
Like, would people know?
What's going on?
We got a little bit of law and order going on here. So when you buy a bag of traded seed, there is some legal jargon on there that kind of explains that you cannot plant. It would be called bin run seed.
Who's making these laws? Who says?
Well, it's a federal law.
That's okay. That counts. All right.
So otherwise, here's what could happen. So if these laws weren't in place, breeding takes a lot of effort. And it takes a lot of money and it takes a lot of resources, especially, everything has become very scientific now.
Right.
We have our own molecular lab that we use and those things aren't cheap.
Right.
No, I imagine.
And so when you produce a new product, you need to protect it.
Sure.
Okay. So there's the protection part.
Okay.
I think it's called plant variety protection.
Okay.
So you have that protection in place. Those laws aren't necessarily out there in the entire world, but it is within the United States. Okay. So it's to protect the companies.
Sure.
From number one, the growers keeping the seed in their bin and then planting that seed.
Oh.
Okay. So that would be your bin run seed. And then it also protects other companies from, you can't just take the genetics from another company.
Sure.
And start breeding with them.
Okay.
So it protects the company. Now, you also wouldn't want to do it from a grower end of things because, like I had said, your field would look like a mess.
Yeah.
Now, you can do that with, so wheat, for example, is open pollinated.
Okay.
It's just an inbred versus anything that has two parents. You don't want to plant that. It would be called that F1 seed. You don't want to plant the seed that you would be hauling into the into the bin because it would look a mess. It wouldn't be nice tabletop uniform looking.
So it wouldn't be good for the grower.
No.
And you're protecting. Essentially, these laws are protecting all the work that you're doing to make these.
Yes.
High quality seeds.
And and another reason why a grower also wouldn't want to do it. So I talk about how you would have like some of the moms, some of the dad. Well, in sunflower breeding, your males are branched. So our males almost kind of look like a wild sunflower.
Really?
And the reason why we do that is because it extends your pollination.
Okay.
So you have your female line out in the field and then you have your male, which is your pollen source. And so our males are branched. And so they look like these kind of wild sunflowers. It has one kind of decent sized main head and then it has a bunch of branches.
So if we pay close attention, we'd be able to decipher one from the other?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to look a little closer next time.
Same.
You would definitely. So if you guys were to ever take a tour of our breeding facility that we have, it's just outside of Fargo, about 45 minutes.
Okay.
We have all sorts of male plants and female plants. And
So interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And the females just look like
perfect.
Just a normal. Yeah, perfect. Look like just your normal
esthetician.
your normal sunflower. With the exception of once we decide there's a mom that we want to work with, it has to go through a conversion process because we have to make that plant sterile. Oh. And so it really dives into this whole nother section and responsibility of our business is converting these females to be sterile. Because how do you plant a sunflower if you want it to pollinate with something else if it's not sterile? And so there's a conversion process to do that.
Goodness.
When you said you were a sunflower breeder, I was like, what? You're a sunflower breeder, right? I mean, now it just makes perfect sense.
Makes sense.
Oh, are we ready for a host halftime?
Probably. Let me get our board.
Ooh, oh my goodness. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. We've gone over a lot of information, but I feel like...
All right. This is our golden trophy of corn that, the winner usually gets, which is usually Heather.
Are you craving sunflower seeds right now?
Yes, dill.
Okay, so who was eating them? Your husband eats them on the nightstand?
Well, I don't know. They were just randomly there, and I'm like, why are there
Maybe he took them out of his
seeds?
pocket. And
I have no idea. It was a big pack of sunflower
But that might be a
seeds
good
this
bedtime
morning.
snack. I mean, why not?
I'm like, why are those there?
Watching a little Netflix, having your sunflower seeds?
I mean, it was motivating for me today.
So speaking of whether or not it's a good bedtime snack, sunflowers are very high in what nutrient?
Oh, yes.
Jen.
Or I'm sorry, in what vitamin?
Oh, good. There's a hint.
Yes. Okay.
I'm going to say D.
E.
Jen's right.
Good job, Jen.
I had unfair
I
advantage.
expect nothing less from you.
I know. Oh my gosh, my NDSU professors would be so embarrassed if I got that wrong.
So vitamin E. Okay, we need that.
Yes. Okay. We kind of covered this in the beginning, but how many different market class options are available for growers in North Dakota? Like how many different segments can they sell into?
Oh, I said 4.
4?
5.
Oh,
You guys are
shoot.
close. So where it gets confusing is so within Oil Crush, you have your Middle Lake and your High Lake.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then your bird food con oil confection.
Okay, so
right.
there was 2 there.
Yep.
5, but 5 total. Okay.
Okay. We also covered this one. Let's see how good you ladies were listening. South Dakota, North Dakota, northwestern Minnesota make up what percentage of U.S. acres
Oh,
on average?
80%?
Yep.
Yay!
That's correct.
Woo!
We did
We
listen.
listened really well.
Oh,
Yeah, and
so
and
good.
even I'll give a shout out to our friendly neighbors to the north in Canada.
Okay.
So most Canadian acres of sunflowers are in southern Manitoba.
Really?
As well.
So right there.
So it just kind of follows the valley a little bit and then goes west.
Wow.
So-
We learned so much about
We
sunflowers.
did.
There's a lot of history to that too, if you guys ever want to.
Oh, okay. Lots more to learn.
Yeah, there is always. And hey, I finally have a win.
Oh, you
Yes.
deserve it.
Well, thanks for the vitamin E question. I appreciate it. Well, this has been really fun. And
Yes, thanks
just-
for teaching us so much.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming in.
I absolutely love talking about it. So anytime.
Yes, you're a wealth of knowledge.
Yes.
We do have one last question before you go. We'd like to know, what's your favorite part about being involved in North Dakota agriculture?
I'm a Minnesota native. So I became a North Dakota resident, about eight years ago. I really like the variety of crops that there is and growers' willingness to try new things.
That's awesome.
I feel like they're very open to that. Just, with new crops that have come on the market, you think about you think about, well, some of the more niche, but even like your field peas and your edible beans, hemp that's come on the market, just some of those. We also have omega-3 canola, and so that's and that's really when I started noticing things like that, is how open are growers willing to try new things.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
are. They're ready to go for it.
They are.
That's great.
They are.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Alison.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Anytime I can sit down and chat with fellow ladies on agriculture, I'm all in.
We love it. We have lots to learn.
Yes. All right. Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
Until next time.
Until next time. Thanks for watching Common Ground, and you can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts.
See you next time. Thanks for tuning in to the CommonGround North Dakota Podcast. Make sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Most importantly, send us your questions about North Dakota agriculture by visiting our website. You might win a prize. We'll see you in the next episode of the CommonGround North Dakota Podcast.